Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is taking another step toward a presidential run, but his team says he's not joining the race yet. This is his official statement of candidacy filed with the Federal Election Commission Thursday afternoon. It says the former Republican and independent is filing to run as a Democrat, assuming he enters the race. An aide familiar with Bloomberg's plans says this is another step toward running, but not a final decision or announcement. On Wednesday, Bloomberg also filed to get his name on the Texas Democratic primary ballot. He had already filed to get on the ballot in Alabama and Arkansas. All three states hold their primaries on Super Tuesday, March 3rd. Sean Sullivan and Lynda Tran join me now with more on this. Sean is a CBSN political contributor and national political reporter for The Washington Post. Lynda is a CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. Welcome to both of you. Sean, help us understand why Bloomberg is filing this paperwork now, even if he's still not ready to enter the race.
Yeah, this is one of those technicalities of federal finance law when it comes to campaigns. So what we've seen so far from Mike Bloomberg is that he has filed paperwork in a couple of states to run for president. That sets off a clock, a 15-day clock in which he has to issue a federal filing. That's what we saw today. So he keeps taking more and more steps toward running. All signs are that he is going to be entering this race at some point. It's not 100% official yet. Obviously, he could change his mind if he wants to, but now every indication we've seen both publicly and privately from Bloomberg and his team is that he is very, very likely to be officially entering this race.
So, Lynda, then what is the strategy behind taking these baby steps before announcing? I mean, this is the longest tease in political history.
Some might say it's a trial balloon. I mean, we're getting days and days of coverage of, anticipation. What's going to happen? Why is it happening?
So is that the strategy? Is it all on purpose?
I have no idea. However, if I were on his team, I might talk about it that way and giving background to folks.
So do you think he is actually still considering, of course, I'm asking you to speculate here, but is he actually still considering whether he should jump into the race? Or he's just trying to figure out the optimal time to announce it?
I'm not quite sure, because the unique thing about Michael Bloomberg is, as you know, we've seen some fits and starts here before. I mean, depending on how you look at it, the tease is multi-year tease, multi-month tease, or multi-week or multi-day tease. So, this is somebody who has suggested that he might throw his hat in the ring previously. And in particular, in this cycle, he had said that he was not going to run because he felt like there wasn't a pathway for him. So clearly something has changed in his calculus that he is even weighing this and going so many steps towards making an announcement.
Right. All right. So, Sean, before we turn to the Democratic debate, I want to talk about Deval Patrick. The late entrant into the race reportedly canceled an event in Atlanta last night after only 2 people showed up. So, Sean, what should we take away from this? And should it also be a sign of concern for Bloomberg as he potentially prepares to be a late entrant?
Yeah, it very well could be a sign of concern for Bloomberg. I think what we look at in this situation is something we've seen throughout history, which is that it is difficult to enter a race that has already been established where you have a number of candidates who have been running for months. Some of these candidates kind of unofficially have been running for years for this race. And so if you're going to enter at the 11th hour, make a late entrance, you need to be sure, number one, that you can attract enough supporters or potential supporters to these events. And so it looks like, that is a very, very challenging thing, at least so far, for Governor Patrick. And right now, a lot of these voters and activists around the country are looking at the current field. A lot of voters I've talked to say they like the field. They like the choices that they have. So if you're a newcomer and you're coming into this race, there's that added hurdle that you have to clear of why voters should look at you when they have all these other choices, when they have all these candidates who, for months, have been showing up in their states, have been showing up in their hometowns, and trying to get their vote. And it's not an easy thing. Sometimes we see, these late entrances become big splashes. We saw that with Governor Patrick. We may see that with Mayor Bloomberg. But when it comes time to actually campaign, to hit the road, to do these events, I think this is an example of how tough that is to even hold a sort of simple campaign event like that.
Now, former Vice President Joe Biden was asked about Patrick and Bloomberg. He pushed back on the idea that they could be entering the race amid establishment concerns about his own campaign. Let's listen.
If you look at the average of the polls, I'm not lagging in the polls. But go ahead.
That's what they're claiming. That's why they are.
I welcome them into the race.
Thank you.
Is that what they
I welcome them. I know. I really mean it. You know, they're both competent people. Come on in. Come on in. The water's warm.
The water's warm.
Uncle Joe.
I know. So, Lynda, we heard him say he welcomes Bloomberg, he welcomes Patrick. But realistically, should he be at all concerned about them entering the race when they're probably going to fight for the oxygen, you know, more or less close to his lane?
Well, first of all, that's the only appropriate response for him, given all the things that are going on. And he did it with, you know, some charm and some of that Uncle Joe appeal that I think has got a lot of voters still solidly in his lane. You know, we've talked a lot about how this last quarter's fundraising seemed significantly lower than folks expected for Joe Biden. But when you look at the polls, he's still consistently at the top, if not towards the top, if not at the very top. And, you know, I think there were a lot of folks that expected that those numbers would have been impacted much more significantly at this point. All that said, you know, the reason why, you know, Michael Bloomberg said that he wasn't going to throw his hat into the ring before, saying that there wasn't a lane for him, was very straightforwardly saying that he thought that Joe Biden had that locked up. And so, you know, the very fact that he has taken these steps that we mentioned suggests that he thinks that there's some room to carve some support away from Joe Biden.
Right. All right. So, Sean, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker's campaign says it raised $650,000 after the debate. That's pretty good. What did you see from Booker last night to drive that kind of fundraising haul? And have you heard of other numbers from other candidates?
Yeah, this is one of Booker's stronger debates. He seemed loose. He seemed confident. He seemed comfortable making some of the contrast that he was trying to make. Clearly seemed to be wanting to make a contrast with another mayor in the race, Mayor Buttigieg. I thought it was notable that Booker, who is a sitting United States senator, seemed to mention his record as mayor of New York more than he mentioned being a senator. He seemed comfortable making a contrast with Elizabeth Warren on her wealth tax. And I think this shows how much impact these debates can have. You know, you're not in front of a national audience like this for a couple hours very, very often in this campaign. These are really make or break moments for these candidates. And if you have a moment that is well received, that is strong, it can help you in the polls. It can also help you with fundraising. And that's what we're seeing today with Mayor Booker, who has really sort of struggled to break into the top tier of candidates. You know, he has not really been able to get into that sort of top 4 or 5 candidates. But everywhere I've gone and seen him in the early states, he gets good crowds. The crowds are energized. He gets loud rounds of applause. So we'll see what this can translate to. But it is a reminder that these debates are really big moments. And if you have a strong moment, it can really show. And if you don't have a strong moment, it can also come back to haunt you.
You know, and as we all discussed last night, though, there were several candidates who did have strong moments during the debate. Did you hear about other candidates, Sean, getting similar fundraising hauls as a result?
Well, it's not clear yet who had the biggest fundraising event, but one name I would keep an eye on is Senator Amy Klobuchar. She had some really strong reviews coming out of this debate, and she's really started to pick up a little bit of momentum in this race. In the last debate, she had a good fundraising day the next 24 hours after that, so she might have an even stronger performance this time around as well. Senator Harris is another name that I think is worth keeping an eye on. She is somebody who struggled really in this race the past few weeks, but I think that her supporters felt that she had a better debate perhaps than some would have expected. So keep an eye on those two senators to see what kind of fundraising numbers they put up because they could be pretty big.
Yeah, a lot of the candidates that everybody assumed were kind of just sort of falling to the wayside in the wake of the Big Four had big nights last night. And now, you know, voters have a lot more to choose from than they thought maybe. Everything's still in play, right, Lynda?
Yeah, I mean, and these candidates knew that they were facing a do or die moment.
Yeah.
You know, of the candidates we saw on stage last night, only 6 of them have so far been announced as qualifying for the December debate. Klobuchar and Harris happened to be 2 of those 6.
Right.
But Cory Booker knew that he needed to really, really seal the deal and make a splash in order to stay in it.
Right. So those voters who are hoping for some clarity and a smaller field, they're not going to get that just yet. Sean Sullivan and Lynda Tran, thank you so much for that.